Okay, so I finished my live about Jar Jar Binks, and I don't think 7 minutes of it was uploaded. It was 44 minutes long, and so I did get a warning about my internet, but I assumed it was going to reconnect and like post the whole thing, but I guess it didn't. So I just channeled this whole thing about Jar Jar Binks, and I guess it didn't upload. So I'm gonna try to recap and recount what I saw, and maybe the original video will upload later, maybe it won't. If it does upload, definitely that's showing me doing the live channeling. Right now I'm just going to be kind of talking and remembering what I saw. But it's a huge bummer, and yeah, but I do think this is an important topic to talk about. um so and there's just so much I said in that video, but I'm going to do my best here to remember it all. But the way they showed me Jar Jar Binks is that so there were an alien species of ETs known as the Mentawakans on the Orion star system that looked very similar to Jar Jar Binks, and that would make sense why we have that character here in Star Wars, is because there is a race of ET beings that look like him. But they're very community driven. The planet they're on was very desert like. So it was like a red desert. And I don't just mean like what we typically see in deserts here on the planet on Earth, but it was actually like bright red, like the YouTube red, like bright red desert sand. And there were crystals in the sand. So it was like shiny. And the Mentawakans, or the Jar Jars, I'm just going to call them the Jar Jars. That's what I called them in the original video. The Jar Jars definitely kind of like, they had this like safe haven spot on the planet that they were on, because they were in Orion during the Orion Wars, and eventually their planet, their town, and probably their planet too, but they're kind of, it's bigger than a town, maybe like their city or place of living. Eventually it was destroyed, but they did a really good job of keeping it isolated and private so that they could have really nice community driven lives. So what they showed me is that there's basically like a wall around them, and then a force field above them too, so that like different spirits or different ETs that were not in physical bodies, anything like negative or nefarious could not come in. And then they had people kind of like patrolling around their space. And so like they were very guarded, very secure. When I came in with them, they actually made me go and like get like a name tag and like sign in, so they would have a record that I visited. So they were really, really good about that, and that's how they kept themselves safe during the Orion Wars. But they basically had like, it kind of looks like, the way they showed it to me is like there's this palace. So they gave me two examples. And I remember that the first one was like the Sultan's Palace from Aladdin, kind of looking like that. And the second one was Princess Peach from the Mario movie, like the newer one that came out. Like how there's this palace or this big, like, like structure where like government or like royals are in. And then there's like a town around it. And it's interesting now because I'm thinking about doing the channeling. Like we didn't actually go into the palace. I don't know who lives there. But like there's this just lively, vibrant town around it. And they're showing these like marketplaces similar to like an Aladdin, where there's like vendors out and you can go and you can like buy stuff. It's just very, very community driven. Like there's a lot of noise and action. I saw several of the Jar Jar people with like little, like the round drums that you like hit. They had a lot of those. And then there were like moms were like maybe they were like cooking, like a vendor making food, and they had their baby right there with them. I saw children that were like 1 or 2, like these little aliens like sitting and playing. So just very vibrant, community driven type of environment, and very safe, right? And that was their big thing. The Jar Jars were like, like despite them living in Orion during the Orion War, they really appreciated like the life that they did have and the time that they had there. And they knew that they were a part of something more. Like they got it. They're just like living this life, and like there's this infinite soul, and they've had all these other incarnations, and they're part of this huge universe where so much is going on, but they still like, they got that, but they still really appreciated like their time on the planet. And so they were showing me all around their town, and I'm so upset that it didn't record. But I guess it's a good learning lesson for next time. And so they showed me that they actually have like a basketball court where they could go and like play sports. Like it very much looked like a neighborhood type of like basketball court, you know, you would see in a city, and you would see like people playing. And this is the interesting part. Like, so like, you know, like you typically would see like parking spots, you know, like beside like this outdoor basketball court open to the public. They had that, but instead of parking spots, they had these like flying motorcycles. And those are in Star Wars. If you've seen like in the older movies, like when they're in the woods and they're on those flying things, that's literally what they showed me. So their craft is very similar to that. So they had those. They're also really into motocross. So they showed me like dirt bikes that they had, and that they actually like would watch it as a sport and gamble based off of it. So I thought that was kind of cute. And then they showed me their communities. They lived in kind of like little villages, and the houses they had were interesting, very close together, right? So you'll see that. And like when I was in Arizona, like the houses were so close together. It just depends on like what state you're in and like how close they build the houses together. If you're in the US anyway, and I'm not sure how it would be in other countries, but their houses were super close. And they're kind of like tiny homes or cottages. Like they weren't big mansions. And then like part of them kind of had like rugs or like tent type of things, like where you, it's kind of like almost having like an awning where you'd park your car, but I guess in their case it's like a ground motorcycle or like a flying motorcycle. But they had like little community spots, and they would even like they would share like amenities like pools. And I don't know if they actually had pools, but they were showing like they shared amenities such as like pools, gyms, fitness centers, things like that. You would share like an apartment complex. They would share those with their community. They also showed me they had like little kind of like fun houses you'd go to that were like themed. So like, you know how like some Airbnbs will like theme themselves as like, we're going to be the pink Barbie Airbnb, we're going to be the Harry Potter, you know, Airbnb. Like these little community like houses you would go to and like play games and like, I guess like drink or like, and I don't know if they had actual alcohol, but like, you know, go and like have like good food, good drink, things like that, nourishment, games, you know, hanging out, that type of thing. They had these little houses or community centers that were also themed as well. So it's really like, it's cute. And I think it's like a nice life. And that's a big thing they emphasize, is that like people came there to have a really like nice life, and there was strong connections between parents and children. So if that's something you needed to heal, you could go there and you could heal that, right? So you could experience being a parent and really being a big part of, you know, in your child's life, and having a good relationship with them. And you could experience being born and having a good hands-on, you know, parent who was there for you. So that was a big thing with them. They also had a connection to the Lyrans. And so a lot of Lyran starseeds or people from Lyra had past lives on Lyra would also incarnate as these Jar Jars, Binks types of characters. And they would communicate like through their heart chakras often, which is actually more akin to like what the Sirius star people do. But they would like have emotions and like feelings and things like that. And so it was really like just a wonderful like sense of community. It was fun. And so it was good because it was during the Orion Wars, and there's like an empire there, right? And they mainly kind of stayed like self-preserving, I guess, right? So they stayed kind of in their own little like bubble in their own community. And some did leave to help the resistance fight the empire. They did note that. But most of them didn't, right? And that did align with like the movie with Jar Jar Binks. He had kind of like left his little community, right, to go out working with, I think it was Obi-Wan Kenobi, I think, don't quote me on that. But for the most part, they just really focused on keeping themselves safe, and they were able to do so for a while. Eventually, during the Orion Wars, their city, their homes were destroyed, but for a while they were able to keep themselves safe, and they did a really good job of doing that while there was like a war going on and everything around, a lot of things around them were being destroyed. Like they really enjoyed that time despite what was going on. So I think that was their message in them coming through, was that like, despite everything going on in the world right now, we can focus on, you know, living our lives, enjoying our lives, and still be able to do that despite what's going on, and of course they had to be diligent about protecting their community and staying alert to what was going on. I don't think they were necessarily saying like, okay, don't pay attention or don't make sure you're going out there and being involved in your community, speaking up, things like that. It felt like they were able to still, despite everything going on, really enjoy, their current situation, their current lifetime that they had. I spoke a little light language. I really hope the other part of this records. If not, that's okay. But they actually sounded like Jar Jar Binks when they talk, because he kind of has like a little, voice that kind of all over the place. And I actually spoke some light language, what they sounded like. And so they sound very similar to Jar Jar Binks when they talk. They're known as the Mentawakans. So they had a connection to Mentaka, which was the first planet in the Orion Wars that was destroyed. It was a neutral place between the Resistance and the Empire, a neutral planet. So it ended up being the first one that was destroyed. They had a connection there. So those would be the Mentakans from that planet. And then they're the Mentawakans is what the Jar Jar people were called. But I kind of just like calling them the Jar Jars. But they did have an official name. I'm trying to think if anything else came up. I think I got it all. So hopefully the rest of it uploads, because it was way more detail and stuff like that. But those were all the big things. If you think you could have been a Jar Jar person, maybe you really like Jar Jar, you have an affinity to him, definitely book a soul origin and life purpose reading with me. If anything I said today resonated with you, because it could be, you could be a starseed who had a lifetime as Jar Jar Binks. And I don't know if this part made it into the other video, but I have so many clients who have been a part of this race. And that's actually why I wanted to channel into it, is because I keep seeing this in the Akashic Records. I keep seeing this star race. So if you think you could be a Jar Jar, I really encourage you to book a soul origin and life purpose reading. That's in the show notes below. I also encourage you, please subscribe if you like this kind of information so that I can keep making it. And then also my third eye activation meditation, if you want to open up your third eye, your intuition more, is linked below as well. So those are just a few, different ways you can work with me. But yeah, so sorry about that didn't upload, but we'll see if the rest of it uploads later, but I'm not sure. So anyway, thanks so much for listening, and bye guys.